I mean, I've seen examples where there's a person that has maybe over 1 million subscribers, gets hundreds of thousands of views every day that they post a video, but they can't even sell more than 5 t-shirts.
Let the creator have freedom. Let them, put it in their own voice, put their spin on it. That's why you want to work with them. You want to tap into their community through them.
Because at the end of the day, like the brand wants to be on their terms. If they can get 100% of their terms, they're going to be happy. The biggest turning point, and a lot of people will attribute this to kind of what put gaming on like more of a mainstream map, is like that night when Ninja played with Drake. And I don't know if even Drake understands probably the extent to what it did.
If you're an influencer or creative looking to maximize your platform, then you've come to the right place. Welcome to the Generation Hustle Podcast, a show that explores the world of business, entrepreneurship, and culture, all centered around the millennial. I'm your co-host Sherrison alongside my good friend Amin, and today we speak with Cody and Cole Hawk, brothers and co-founders of Up North Management Group. The creator economy is booming, with creatives across various social platforms gaining popularity and business opportunities at scales we have never seen before. But these individuals are not always equipped with the knowledge and expertise to navigate the technical landscape of monetizing their platform. This is where Up North thrives. Up North Management Group is a leading talent management firm representing top gaming and esports creators and streamers and professional athletes with a passion for the digital space. They have partnered with brands such as Samsung, Nesquik, LG, and Oculus, while representing high-profile clients like JGod, Ink Slasher, Noisy Butters, and others. We sit down with Cody and Cole to discuss their journey in talent management. They detail how they started their firm, how they help clients maximize their platforms, and the common pitfalls of creators who are mismanaged. If you're looking to learn how to take your talents to the next level, this episode is for you.
Let's get right into it in terms of just the journey that you guys have taken. Specifically, I just want to talk about agencies, right? So they've become something very popular in recent times, especially with the boom of social media, e-commerce, and whatnot. So Cody, if you were to, wanting to start your own agency today, specifically say like your industry, what steps should that person take in order to first get that client? And what skills should that founder work on developing, and maybe bring in some context as to what Up North is doing as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think you got to really take a look at the overall industry and sort of maybe even find some white spaces if that's possible, and look at sort of where you feel there's a need to come in and represent talent in a certain degree. It's extremely competitive, especially today. I mean, we've only been around for just under 2.5 years, and
Mhm.
the amount of agencies and management companies that have popped up during that time, it sort of seems like there's a new one every day. So sort of be caution about the amount of players entering the space, but that also shouldn't discourage you from, entering the space. In terms of different types of skills that people should have. I mean, just the persistence of it is key. I think you really have to be passionate about the industry as a whole, passionate about what you do. Like any startup or anything that you're venturing into for the first time, it's gonna take time to grow and build, and you're gonna reap the benefit, not immediately. So I think you have to really understand that. Um, Again, it's as esports and gaming is competitive within their respective landscape, so is the business side of it. There's so many people trying to, because it is really the Wild West right now, and there's not a lot of rules and guidelines of what you can and can't do. Everyone, and their sister just is going to enter and try and see the money that's there, and get through it. So you just keep sort of putting your head down, and building and growing, and be passionate, do your research, and understand that it takes time to really build it.
Yeah, awesome. And if you were to describe Up North, what do you guys who's the clientele you kind of cater to, and how did you kind of develop that brand over time?
So when we started our company 2.5 years ago, we didn't really have the idea of wanting to go directly into gaming. We saw the digital space as a whole as an opportunity to work with talent that was either underrepresented from a marketing perspective, didn't understand how to make content. They were taking advantage of from legal rights, and I'm sure so many people have seen all the craziness with respect to contracts and lawsuits that have gone on between different people in the broader entertainment industry when you just don't understand what you're signing up for. So we really wanted to attack the entire digital space as a whole. We wanted to have lifestyle content creators on YouTube and beauty influencers and gamers and sort of everything all wrapped into one. We quickly realized, I would say in the first like 3 weeks of trying that approach, that was just not the right angle to take. So we completely pivoted and realized that, hey, we are gamers. We've been playing video games our whole lives. We understand the culture of what goes into it. There's been this whole explosion of gaming. Esports was this like buzzword that every single person was talking about, and no one actually, really knew what it was. And we sort of saw that opportunity as the one for us to come in and really shake things up. And that's how we started, and sort of just started reaching out to people that we liked on YouTube and Twitch. And yeah, that's sort of how everything was built from the ground up.
Right. And Cole, do you have anything to add on that as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think Cody pretty much hit everything. Like you said, in the beginning, we were so just like wowed by the digital space as a whole. We started like writing down the types of content that we saw like that was hot at the time and trending. And it was like people like, those crazy people that do like those food challenges, just like eating like the entire menu of fucking restaurants and stuff like that. And like, we were like, okay, well, is this what we want to go for, or like how do we best want to like position ourselves? And like Cody said, like the gaming space was just what we quickly realized made the most sense. And I think just for anyone listening, I think the word esports is a little confusing, and it's people don't really tend to know what exactly it represents. And gaming is the overall umbrella, and esports is just one component under gaming. Esports like only represents the competitive side of gaming, so the
Right.
professional people that play in tournaments and the circuit and leagues and all like and everything like that. And I think where Cody and I sit is we like to sit on the content side, and the content side under the gaming umbrella. So the majority of our clients are content creators, YouTubers first, and they make content around gaming, most specifically to one game, and like that's just their thing. But some kind of play a variety of different games. But yeah, we like to sit. We as of right now, we sit on the content side.
Sweet, sweet. And so, Cody, if I were to ask you also, what are some common traps that a lot of agency founders fall into, and as a result, their business never takes off?
I think they come into it and they think that within the first 2 weeks they're going to sign the next ninja, and they sort of just have that idea of like, oh my god, there's so much money in gaming, and I'm going to work with this person and I'm going to land $1 million brand deal right away, and this and this. And that's just like not going to happen, because like I said before, it's so competitive now from a business side. Like there's just so many agencies and management companies that have been popping up, and everyone's signing talent. Like people are almost blindly signing talent just to sort of have them under their wing, and they're hopeful that eventually that person's going to take off. I think that's probably a really common misconception, and that's definitely a trap, likely for a lot of people. Again, just looking at it and thinking that you're going to, again, when you start like generating all this business, and unless you have certain relationships that you've had in place before, or contacts or things like that, it's very hard to get going. It's a slow burn. So that's probably one of the bigger traps.
And then just to add on that, I come from the music industry. So in the music industry, people always say you have to have a good ear for music. And
Mhm.
I would say the similar trait applies to what we do, because you have to have a good eye for talent, in the sense that, it's great if there's a YouTuber out there that's doing, hundreds of thousands of views. But in our business, you'll learn very quickly that that doesn't always translate to for that creator to be able to do other things like sell their own products, merchandise, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I've seen examples where there's a person that has maybe over 1 million subscribers, gets hundreds of thousands of views every day that they post a video, but they can't even sell more than 5 t-shirts.
Yeah.
So, it's all about building a community. And I think our clients that have the most success are those who have built communities, really tapping into their fan base, getting to know them on a personal level and giving back to them. And I think that's 100% like if you want to be a successful YouTuber, like that is the route to go.
Right, right. And so, Cody, you also mentioned something around, clients, right? A lot of agencies are just hiring clients left and right just because. But in terms of your case, what do you kind of look at in terms of a prospective client and making sure that they're the right fit for your organization, but also looking at it on the reverse, kind of proposing your value to a potential client and saying, you guys are a right fit for our brand as well and what we can help you guys with?
There's definitely certain criteria that we look for. So the entertainment factor has to be there. Do we enjoy the content? Do we see sort of the upside of, you translating that content into further opportunities, whether that's creating your own show or different types of series or that on the content side. So like, being an entertainer is what we strive for, to sign in our clients. Finding that sort of transcendability, which means, are you able to take that content and do we see you having success in 2, 3, 4, 5 years so that we can build towards something there? I think community is massive, as Cole alluded to before. How engaged is your audience? Are you putting out a video and you only have 500,000 subscribers, and are you seeing a 50% retention rate or watch time from those subscribers? That's super important. I'd rather sign somebody, and Cole feels the same way. If you have 500,000 subscribers, you average 250,000 views a video, rather than someone that has 1 million subscribers and only is averaging 75,000 a video, because we understand that the community is there. You have some kind of different type of relationship with your audience, which is intriguing for us. We like to see people that have different social media platforms engaged and have higher audience rates there. I think it's great to have a big following on YouTube or Twitch, but what does your Instagram look like? What does your TikTok look like? What is your Twitter, et cetera, et cetera. So sort of those are the types of things that we try and have an eye for when we're surveying talent and looking for someone else. And I'll let Cole chat about anything else that he sees when we're looking and evaluating talent.
Yeah, that's the real thing. And I think just going back to that community aspect, if you look at the most successful digital creators right now, they're all the ones who really tap into their community. I think Mr. Beast is like the best example. And
Yeah.
I mean, he's crazy and I get it. Like, I think partly is due to like money and just different challenges for just fans to like be able to earn money. But like, hey, if that's your thing, like that's your thing, go for it.
Yeah, he found that niche.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you think there's like I know you guys are not YouTubers specifically or, streamers, but do you think there's like a specific formula for virality or building a community that maybe, YouTubers watching this podcast can maybe take advantage of?
Virality is really tough, right? I mean, if everyone could have figured out and cracked the code, I think you'd see it more often. Authenticity with respect to the content is so important. You're looking at something like what happened on TikTok with the what was it, the cranberry juice?
Yeah.
Dog face.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with dog face. I think that was just, it was so relatable. The timing was perfect. Everyone's, been sitting in their house and, going through tough times. And it was kind of like this bright spot when he started singing. You had no expectations of what was going to happen in the content. And then he had a big smile on his face, and just as someone who watched it, you want to smile and start singing to the song because it's such a common song. And then that song appeals to everyone from 10 years old because they're watching on TikTok to your 75-year-old because the song's been out for so long. And so there's certain inherent traits, or you look at like the content that Ryan Reynolds would put out for its commercials for Mint or Aviation Gin. I think everyone knows him as a comedic actor, and he's able to translate that to a short content piece that gets shared along the internet. So there's definitely patterns. I think it's just extremely hard to map something and say,
It
hey,
feels like everyone's trying to, like, if you look at every brand's social presence, everyone's trying to have their like communication or like digital personality be around like meme culture and just like reacting to like anything that's happening in the moment. And I think, I mean, it works sometimes. I think that's just like the culture that we live in right now.
Yeah, I totally agree with
I think
that.
like don't go into it thinking we're going to make a viral piece. It's just
Yeah.
let's if there is the potential there, that's amazing. But like that should not be your goal as a marketer.
Right.
For sure, yeah, and I feel like a lot of cases it ends up being a happy accident where you don't intend it to be viral and it just kind of takes off, right? I don't think Dogface thought that skateboarding video was gonna get
No.
him all of this. So on that note, Cole, I'll ask you this, but I'll take feedback from both of you, obviously. But you mentioned earlier, obviously, there's a lot of YouTubers who have huge platforms, but just don't know that business side. And something that you guys have mentioned in previous interviews is that there's a lot of large firms or agencies that will take advantage of that, right? Because if they don't understand the business side, it's better for them just to kind of maybe keep
Yeah.
it like hit them with the blind side, right? So, do you have any examples of this that you'd be willing to share, or any common areas in these negotiations that are overlooked, at least from the talent side, because they just don't have that understanding?
Yeah, I'll speak on it generally, and then I'll let Cody jump in after, because as Cody's a lawyer, he'll
Yeah,
be able to
Right.
tell you kind of like specific deal terms that like should or shouldn't be in contracts. But yeah, I mean, in general, sometimes we're dealing with, at the end of the day, a lot of them are kids, right? A lot of them are kids who found success early, and maybe they just didn't have the necessary knowledge or business background to be able to think in the way of like longevity and taking care of themselves and protecting themselves. And I think if you're in a position where maybe you're starting on YouTube or you're on Twitch and you're just starting to gain some traction, and all of a sudden, I'm just giving an example, but like McDonald's reaches out, you're like, oh my god, it's McDonald's. Like, I'll do anything to work with McDonald's. I'll do anything to associate myself. Like, I'm in. Where do I sign? And I think people are really quick to not do their due diligence and just kind of sign contracts or just get themselves into situations where, you're not protected. Because at the end of the day, like the brand wants to be on their terms. If
right.
they can get 100% of their terms, they're going to be happy. So, but I'll let Cody kind of jump in from like a lawyer's perspective.
From sort of from a creator's perspective, especially when they're up and coming and maybe they're not working with, any type of representation, they want to know who the brand is or what the product is. That's first and foremost. But once that gets cleared, there's really only two questions after that. It's how much money are you paying me and what do I have to do for you?
Right.
There's no regard for how long the term is, what's the exclusivity, going into the terms and conditions and sort of the mundane contract terms that go into that deal. Like they have no regard for that and no understanding for it. So that's where things get potentially, a little dicey. They don't understand that, they have to keep the content up for a certain period. You're signing away usage rights and you're giving away your likeness in perpetuity and you don't even know what that means. And, it's so many terms get overlooked because people, especially when they're up and coming, get so excited about, the money and the opportunity in that association that they just don't even think about it. So that's really scary in a lot of instances.
For sure. So, from your perspective, from up north, how do you guys approach the contract negotiations? Obviously, you don't have to give away trade secrets, but what are areas that you guys focus on in terms of preparing um, the, your clients to kind of go into that meeting to say, "Hey, this is what you need to focus on," or like, how's that preparation go?
Yeah, I mean, we would like to take sort of a more hands-on approach where uh, Cole and I are just active in those talks. Anyone on our roster is more than happy to like come into a conversation with the brand. Not all the time does it make sense, just
Right.
because on the business side, you just as a creator, you probably shouldn't hear some of those things that are being talked about, and that's why you should have representation. Um, but I mean, with my legal background and just being an attorney, I understand the inner workings of the contract. I know what to ask for. I know where we can, give and take on certain terms, certain deliverables, pricing. We have a knowledge of that just being in the industry for a bit now. But yeah, it's really just educating them even after the fact on, hey, this is what they wanted. Like we've had so many conversations with talent where, you know, they got the contract first and they were like, hey, like I'm gonna sign it, am I okay? And they like sent it over to us and I'm like, you know, this and this was in the contract, you wouldn't have understood that. Or, it's a new talent of ours, and, maybe there's an extension on a deal and they want to redo the contract and they send over the old one. And I just look at it and I'm like, there are so many issues and problems with it. Not from again, general key terms, because the key terms of the price and what you're doing is all fine according to them, because that's all they care about. But it's signing your rights away. It's allowing the other side to assign this contract blindly when you don't even know where it could go, and then you're still bound by it. And there's so many intricacies that go into the makeup of a deal, that I think it's just important to always have someone in your corner understanding what you're signing away.
Right. And do you think, like, at like what stage do you think someone who's a YouTuber or Twitch streamer, whoever it may be, can have leverage in conversations? For example, obviously everyone's not Joe Rogan. He had a lot of leverage when he went into the discussions with Spotify, and in terms of like the big things, like how it's distributed, where it's distributed, and the rights. Where have you seen common pitfalls? Because let's just give an example of music, like the masters is what they call them, I think,
Hmm.
in terms of having rights to those, and usually the record company owns those. So like, where can you see the same kind of like pitfalls for like YouTubers and giving away too many of their IP rights and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're always just trying to. Our job is to fight for our clients. Our job is to fight for them to get the best terms. So anything that we think of that's obviously like reasonable, we're going to fight for and try to put them in the best position. I think where you have probably more flexibility is when you're kind of at that higher level of talent, where you know you're offering somebody, they're getting more out of it than you would be getting out of them.
Right. Right.
So I think those are the situations probably where there's the most flexibility. Yeah.
In terms of creators having sort of the freedom, the internet, levels the playing field for everyone. So you're able to, create content, upload it, and it has the potential to go viral on a platform. So if you look at TikTok, there are, in the last 12 to 18 months, there are global superstars of kids that have come up on the platform that didn't have any followings before. So what really intrigued Cole and I when we wanted to get into the space was, within digital media, there's not a lot of gatekeepers. So if you're looking at traditional film, TV, music, etc., there's just countless people that can say no to you at every single step. So if you want to create a TV show, the amount of people and sort of red tape that you have to go through is immense. In music, it's the same way. In digital, you are the writer, creator, producer, director, exhibitor, all in one. So you really have that freedom and flexibility to put out content at will. And I think as you become bigger and bigger, you're be able to leverage yourself um, to have more control into what you want to do. But I mean, some people, get hot really quick, and then maybe they sign some rights away and they're locked into distribution deals or production deals that maybe they shouldn't have signed, or maybe they just signed too early. But I think being a creator in today's world, you just have so much freedom and flexibility to put out
Right.
content at will. So you have a ton of leverage at the end of the day, because, case in point, if you're a YouTuber, you're putting out content. Once you reach the minimum threshold on YouTube, you're earning money on every video. If you're not violating, terms or getting strikes or claims or things like that. So, if a brand is coming to you and say, "Oh, I'm going to, pay you this or whatever," you don't necessarily have to fall back. You have the Google AdSense to fall back on, because you're constantly earning money. So that's just a huge advantage, especially on the YouTube content creator side of things.
Right, right. So that brings us to like a perfect segue in here, talking about like the branding, the sponsorship, and partnerships that a lot of YouTubers are now commonly associating themselves with, or personalities, I should say. So, Cole, if you were to describe, how do you define the word brand and associate it with a client?
I think the best way to describe a brand is like that's your identity. That's how that's your perception, that's how you're being perceived, that's what you're putting out there. It's everything from your aesthetic, your personality, kind of all of those factors that go into it. um, yeah, I mean, as a management company, Cody and I are really here on the brand building side. I think those are where some of our best traits lie, and just the understanding of like how to go from, that 0 to 100 level, and
Mhm.
we've had like great examples of that when, we've taken, you know I always like to say, like, we make a bet on some people, and in terms of just having that eye for the talent, even when they're at a very, very small level, and just knowing like what the potential could be. And then me and Cody basically putting like the magic of up north behind them, and putting our resources into it and helping them grow to that level. And I mean, we've had clients where we started with them at, 100,000 subscribers, and today they're at 1 million subscribers, and done a lot through that. So yeah, I mean, you're just, again, the best way to describe it is your brand is really everything that you are putting out there and how you want to kind of be perceived by your
Mhm.
audience.
Cody, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think he did a good job of describing it. It's also like, how you personally want to be identified as. So you should be shaping and creating your brand. And if it's, yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Okay, awesome. One of the questions a lot of us get from our guests is like, how do you evaluate a good partnership or sponsorship that's a good fit, one with the brand? And then, can you give us an example of a good and a bad scenario, just to give context into both scenarios?
A good partnership gives value to both sides. There has to be value to you as a creator, but there also has to be value to the brand, because if there's value to both sides, then you're going to want to continue to work together. And the goal is to create long-term partnerships where you both grow, and you're giving value along the way to each other. That's probably just a good general definition of it. A really good partnership, that we've been able to execute, is for our client Nasher. Um, and we did it with Bauer Hockey. I'm wearing the hat. But yeah, with him, we started working with him about 2 years ago. And if anyone's not familiar with him, he's basically more or less the face of the NHL video game from a influencer content creator perspective. And then he also creates a ton of content on his YouTube channel related to um, basically showing you a point of view from a hockey player on the ice and on roller. So he'll strap a GoPro to his helmet and give you sort of that POV look at what it looks and feels like to play hockey, which is really cool, and it's really different. So with him, we sort of had this idea to, you know, again, it's brand building. It's trying to create value for him when we first came into that, and evaluating different types of brands and partners that we could, start having conversations with. Hockey in itself is a very niche sport. The NHL doesn't do a great job at. I think this is sort of obvious. They don't do a great job at marketing their players very well. So
Mm.
if you're taking a guy like Nasher, who has a very large audience, he's probably, more famous than, I don't know, 80% of the league. I mean, he has a bigger following than 80% of the league. That's a fact. And, we
Yeah.
wanted to, get him more on a level where he's looked at almost as one-to-one to an NHL player. And that was sort of the whole skeleton to build around him, for just going forward in terms of how we go in and brand build. And so we started, conversations with the major hockey equipment companies and said, hey, like, how do we make him a real true athlete? And the way you do that in the hockey world is you go and you partner with one of the hockey companies, just like a basketball player goes and says, I want to be a Nike athlete, or
Mhm.
Adidas, etc. Same for all the other sports. And, we just started having conversations and really, telling them this is what the vision is and how can we get involved, and things of that nature. And we spoke to all of them. And the one that really jumped out at us was Bauer, and they were really, really receptive to our ideas. And, they were thinking of ideas. And I think the process took probably 6 months from start to finish. It took a long time. It took a lot of conversations, a lot of different meetings with people there. But they've been fantastic. I mean, they understood the vision, I think, from day one, and that's a partnership that made Nasher the first ever influencer gamer, whatever you want to call him. As the first athlete, signed by a major sports equipment company, and you know, people look at the Ninja signing with Adidas, and I think that's maybe even more apparel. But Nasher is a Bauer athlete, just like any other NHL player that's on their roster. We're creating content with them. We're doing givebacks in the communities, charity streams, appearances that we've done at rinks where hundreds of kids will show up just to meet Nasher and skate with him and shoot with him on the ice. And we've done a lot of really, really cool activations and push the boundaries on what a partnership looks like. And that's probably one of the best ones that just, and we're biased obviously, but that we've seen, but obviously because we've been part of it, we've been able to help facilitate it and grow it. But I think that's a really, in a real true partnership that both sides are getting immense value. From a content perspective, we're helping them build their different social media channels. We're helping them tap into a younger demographic because that's, Nasher's bread and butter from an audience perspective. They're getting more into the gaming scene as that continues to grow. And then, Nasher gets to be associated with the NHL players and gets to create content with guys on their roster and, do appearances just like any other NHL player gets to do. And things like that. But I think that's just a really great example of a great partnership where, again, both sides are getting value. It's long term. It's something that we want to continue to build out and further push the boundaries on of like what we can do together and how we can make a big spark, especially in growing the game of hockey.
Could you describe like maybe a bad instance of where this has happened? Like maybe there's sometimes always talk about the money is too good to pass up, and a lot of clients will say, it's $1 million. Why are we passing up on it or something like that? Do you have influence over kind of making sure that they make the right decision, or at the end of the day, it's probably the client's choice, but have you seen instances where that hasn't turned out well?
Us internally, I would say we have a very good track record. And I know I'm being biased, but like we do. And I think that's just kind of a testament of like the type of work that we put out. Cody, I think there was something recently, like generally like a partnership that was done like on Twitch or something that was like a complete mess. It was like with like I don't know, like a food or beverage brand that was doing something small.
Yeah. I'm not going to say the name of the brand, but
For sure.
it was more so I think the brand just being too controlling. That is where I think you get a bad relationship between, or sort of on the brand deal side of thing, is when the brand has too much influence and control over the type of content and doesn't let the creator speak to what they want to talk about, how they want to promote the product. Like, I think it's great to have a general idea of how you want your call to action to be, what you want the messaging to be, where you want things posted, and how you're going to amplify that even on the brand side. But let the creator have freedom. Let them, put it in their own voice, put their spin on it. That's why you want to work with them. You want to tap into their community through them. And once you ruffle that relationship, it becomes disingenuous. And then the community is just like, well, what did you just promote? Like, why would I ever go and promote that product? Like, you're not even excited about it. Like, why would I even go there? And then on the other side, it's the creator doesn't want to breach that trust that they have with their audience. Like, creators and influencers are influential because you have a very high trust relationship with them. They're very down to earth. They're in a bedroom. They're speaking to you directly on camera. They have that different type of relationship with their audience, versus a general celebrity. And so once that's breached, that's sort of a slippery slope, that creator doesn't want to go on. And that's the sort of negative side to what happens on the creator there. But I mean, it happens sometimes. We try to avoid it because you have conversations with brands prior to actually kicking things off, and you're making sure that the messaging is okay and they're not trying to be overbearing. But that's a caution for any brand out there that is looking to work with any type of talent.
Yeah. I mean,
you really let them
right? Like they make content for a living. They know what to do. They know what's going to work best. So I mean, obviously give like, a rough outline of what you're looking for, a rough creative, but like, please put the trust in the creator to turn out the best possible content.
For sure. Yeah. And at the end of the day, they're the ones that built it. So they should have that final say, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of want to pivot back into the world of esports because I obviously that's kind of where you guys started out with, and you mentioned it earlier as well that you guys are both gamers as well, so you have that background. Can you kind of explain to us how your interest in that kind of grew with the explosion of esports and kind of um, just the general gist of understanding how we can make money from that? Because obviously there's still that narrative around gaming as hey, it's just gaming, right? And there's a whole demographic of people that don't understand that world. So can you kind of expand on that a bit and use your journey with that to give us examples?
Yeah. I mean, growing up, Coney and I were really big gamers. We had every system you can imagine. I wouldn't say we dove too much into like the kind of like role playing games or like the Warcrafts of the world, things like that, but more so like Call of Duty, Halo, all the sports titles, and that was just a huge part of our childhood and continued kind of as we got older. And uh,
Have you guys got your hands on the PS5 yet?
I have an Xbox.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Wrong crowd, wrong crowd.
I've
Yeah.
we've been like Xbox people forever, so it's just something
Yeah.
that's stuck. Yeah.
Fair, fair. Sorry to
Yeah.
cut you off. Go ahead.
No worries. So that's where like the passion came from. Really, maybe as far back as like 2014, 2015, just noticing like people playing competitively and the tournaments were growing bigger in size and they started doing them out of like stadium venues and obviously it was massive in Asia, but once it hit kind of like the North American market, then people I think really started to notice and the biggest turning point, and a lot of people will attribute this to kind of what put gaming on like more of a mainstream map is like that night when Ninja played with Drake. It
Right.
kind of just changed everything. And I don't know if even Drake understands probably the extent to what it did, but it really, I think it did, and I think it made people think about gaming in a different light. It made people understand it. First of all, it drove people to Twitch. No one knew what Twitch was. I don't
Right.
think the majority of like mainstream people knew, unless you were a hardcore gamer. And it opened the lens of gamers aren't necessarily like these nerdy like people like in their parents' basement. Like that was a huge like stigma, and I think it's finally coming out of that. But I think that was a big turning point.
It was almost like that was a clash of cultures when Drake came on with Ninja. It was like it brought those two worlds together. So
Yeah.
and to your point, I feel like he's kind of a marketing genius in that sense, but I don't know if he'd ever admit that he knew what he was doing.
I know.
No, I would say like similar to Cole, that event probably sparked something personally in my head that I didn't know at the time that would sort
Right.
of lead to all this. But I mean, even I think that was 2017 or 20.
2017.
I think
Um,
so, yeah.
I mean, I had like personally had no intention of like, oh, I want to be in the gaming space at that time, like none whatsoever. But maybe that was like the first spark in my head that sort of got thoughts rolling through over the next 12 months.
For sure. So in that field and in terms of branding and getting sponsorships as you're gaming, can you give us an example of how you can make money through that stream? And it can be any brand that they're associated with, but we just want an example of a gamer that is able to kind of monetize that aspect of their life into something that can help them make a living.
So on the professional side, you are signed more or less with a team. That's usually how it will go. So you'll get, a salary, benefits, things like that when you're signing to a pro roster. A lot of the leagues, and there's sort of been some controversy, especially in the Call of Duty scene. A lot of the pro players are restricted from taking on branded opportunities outside of the league. So on their personal YouTube channels or Twitch channels and other social media, they're not allowed to do a lot of different brand deals, which I think will probably change over the next little bit. But yeah, I mean, you're sort of restricted from that perspective. But then on the other side, there are league sponsors that if they want to individually, work with you and pay you, so the Pepsis of the world or things of that nature, because you're having a lot of these very high blue chip Fortune 10 brands that are involved in esports now. They can individually sign you as an endorsee, similar to how, like for example, in the NFL, they have like, I think it's like Nationwide is Peyton Manning, I think. So like Nationwide is an NFL sponsor, but they also sponsor Peyton Manning kind of thing. Yeah, and then obviously when you're when you're not in the esports scene and you're not contracted to be a pro, if you're a content creator and streamer, there are a number of revenue avenues that you can take. Everything from content on YouTube, so you get AdSense that's paid by Google and ads there. You can put sponsorships on top of that content, so actually within the content. If you're working with Bauer, you're wearing a hat and you're getting paid to wear a hat in the video, but you're also getting pre-rolls, mid-rolls, and sort of different types of ads from YouTube there. If you're streaming on Twitch, there's a number of ways to earn money. Again, ad revenue, tips, donations, all of that kind of thing there. Traditional influencer marketing posts on the different social media channels, obviously appearances, content series IP that maybe you're hosting a show for Snapchat, maybe you're hosting a show for ESPN. Like there's just a traditional endorsements for sports, celebrities, influencers, sort of all wrapped in one for gaming. I feel like I missed some, but it's a general gist.
No, that was great. I feel like you broke down multiple streams that you can kind of make money through that space. But I want to go back to one point that you made there in the beginning about getting a salary and benefits from a team. And the reason I go back to that is a lot of our listeners tend to be corporate workers or 9-to-5 workers or entrepreneurs who are used to that world. Whereas to me, it sounds weird to be like, hey, I signed a contract with a salary with benefits to play video games, right? So can you maybe explain like the requirements of that? So it's like in a traditional job, you'd say, hey, you get $50,000 per year with 2 weeks vacation because you're an accountant, right? So the flip side of that, can you explain that?
I mean, it's similar in certain sense of like, again, Cole and I, sort of sit on the fence of dipping our toes in esports. We don't have any esports players on our roster. We haven't done any sort of, actual contracts with contracting to pro teams, but I mean, it's very similar to traditional sports in the sense that you're contracted for, the season. You have to have, you're showing up for practice, you're showing up for different appearances that are mandated by them. You're getting benefits, of medical, dental, et cetera, that sort of come through that, which is similar to a lot of jobs.
Usually covering like housing, expenses,
food, nutrition. You probably have access to, I'm trying to think from a team's perspective. It depends on them, but like access to, psychologists and therapists and people on sort of like the mindful side of things.
Right.
A chef, and you're probably having to appear in different types of content pieces and promotional materials for them. Again, just like if you look at the Toronto Raptors, those guys have to do, meet and greets and promos for TSN and Sportsnet and things like that. They have to show up for. Like they'll do the same thing for the pro league side of things.
How important, I mean, networking is really important regardless of whatever career you're in, but especially maybe in a talent agency because you kind of have to find your clients. How important has that been, and where did you guys kind of develop the skills towards, building your network, and what techniques did you use early days to kind of attract talent to come to where you are today?
It's like networking is everything. In talent management, it's the number one thing. And I think our skills from in that come from the worlds that we came from before we started up north. Me on the music side, I mean, I developed skills like in college. The way I got into the music industry was basically I ran social media pages for like a number of different artists and producers, and that was me literally cold emailing like the management teams, agents of like every single one of my favorite artists, and just kept being persistent and asking. And I think Cody shares like a similar path when he was working for like a number of TV film companies, law firms, et cetera, et cetera. So in the early days of Up North, like it was all cold emailing. And I think people
every internship that I did throughout college and law school, it was through networking, like cold emailing people, having conversations, sitting down with them, when I sort of got this like networking bug when I was probably I was a sophomore in college, and I sort of just got introduced to the entertainment world, especially when I knew I wanted to go to law school and sort of combine entertainment and law. I was introduced to someone. They told me to read this book. I picked up the book. I looked at sort of who the authors were. Turns out that one of the authors is from Toronto. I was from Toronto. They were like the guru deal making in Hollywood. That was the title of the book. I reached out to that person. We connected. This was like 2014, maybe 2013, when like LinkedIn was early days and like I didn't really know how to navigate that and use it.
Mm-hmm.
I like cold messaged them on LinkedIn. They responded. We got on the phone. A week later, turns out in the book they had 30 to 40 testimonials and quotes from different managers, agents, lawyers, studio executives in Hollywood. And now that I had met with that person, I used that to leverage to every single person in the book. I found all their emails. I went to meet pretty much like probably 75% of them in person, on the phone, things like that. And then from there, I created an entire network where I set myself up to get an internship every single semester within the entertainment business, from working at management companies to movie studios to law firms, everything there. And then I knew sort of how the process worked, and then sort of cater that to up north, where we started with nothing. We had no clients, no revenue coming in. We started randomly one day and we had to cold email people. Like that's how we got started. If we saw someone we liked, we hit their email. Cole and I didn't even have an up north email at the time. We were like using Cole's like music management email because it had management in the email. We had no idea what we were doing. I was using like a Gmail. It was like so uncredible, to when you're asking someone to represent them, and people would be like, well, first of all, 95% of them wouldn't answer you, and the 5% that would be like, okay, well, like, what do you do? How long have you done this? Like, why would I even sign with you? You have no experience, you have no clients, etc. So, it just took a lot of networking there on that side. On the brand side, again, we didn't know who to talk to at a brand, or know that a lot of it's controlled by bigger brand agencies that have the accounts for these brands. We had no relationships with them. It took a very long time to do that. It took a long time to build a network of our own clients, who then, the best type of client referral is telling their friend about you. So, it took a long time before that even happened. And one of our clients that we have existing introduced us to someone else and that they were friends with, and things like that. All the way up until like last week, there was a crazy thing that happened. And I can't go into too much detail on sort of like who it was, but we had a client, someone very powerful and famous, followed them on Instagram. We told our client to go message them and ask them for advice about certain things. We got on the phone, they introduced us to this opportunity, and we got involved in the last week. And that was all based on a cold message that they sent on Instagram. We've signed talent DMing them on Instagram and Twitter. It's just really using your advantage, and using your networking skills and trying to hone them in different ways, trying new things, trying different templates, but just like being persistent, not giving up is the most important.
Yeah, for sure. And what would you say? Like, I think a lot of millennials or younger people have this instant fear of rejection, and so they stop like doing this whole networking thing or stop doing what they're doing. What would your piece of advice be? Because especially as entrepreneurs, you're going to get rejected every day.
Yeah.
Be to just the general population and even new upcoming entrepreneurs.
Get used to it.
Yeah.
No, really. Like you have to be willing to handle rejection, but also on the alternative, just be persistent. Like if there's a no, find another way, find somebody else. We've lost out on people that we wanted to sign, and the best way to get over that is go and find somebody else, or keep growing what you have internally, and keep pushing forward. That persistence, just keep going, don't put your head down, don't look at anybody else, what anybody else is doing. That's really important, but be really, really comfortable with rejection. Like get really nice and comfortable with it.
Yeah.
That's
I
awesome.
would 100% agree with that. I think also like networking on the business side, people underestimate the fact that people love to talk about themselves. So if you find areas to like ask somebody like, hey, I generally just want to like pick your brain, learn like what you do, learn how you built this company, like more or less, like they're going to want to talk about themselves.
Yeah,
And
So
and you
That's
guys
a good
probably
point.
know too, like so many people now, it would be, impossible 5 years ago to get an hour of time with them. But if you're coming to them and say, "Hey, I want to go on your podcast," they're
Yeah.
gonna come on a podcast. Like that's just what it is. And that's, even another way where young people, if they're trying to, meet people and network, like even frame it and start a podcast, just have a conversation with them and talk about it and ask all your questions. Cause like that's almost like a growth hack, I think, to like attack the problem. When you could do it. But I think also underestimating like people do want to give back and help other people. And, they're probably more willing than you think when you don't reach out to them.
Mhm.
Maybe, and you got to sort of believe in the chance that they're going to
Yeah.
answer you and you can go on a conversation. But again, just being persistent and getting comfortable with no.
Yeah, totally agree. We have many instances where we're rejected every day by
Yeah,
potential guests, so it's normal. And speaking of networking, obviously, Cody, you reached out to me cold through LinkedIn,
exactly.
and
Yeah,
this is how we got the podcast. Like we didn't know each other before this, right?
yeah.
So that's just the power of networking, and just like the simplicity of just asking a question or just reaching out. It's like that easy to
And
kind of
it's so easy now because everyone's on social media, everyone's on LinkedIn, so you have the ability to actually access them. Before, you had to pick up the phone or somehow run into them or go to their office, and like that was,
Yeah,
extremely hard to do.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, for sure. And that's a great psychology point too, even for us when we reach out to potential guests. You mentioned like just saying, "Hey, like we just want you to talk about yourself." When we ask people, "Hey, can you come on our podcast?" We get a different response than if we say, "Hey, can you tell your story on our podcast?" You know what I mean? It just phrasing it differently, it gets them.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so that kind of like sums up like the beef of the podcast, and we always love to end up with a little lightning round. So both for Cole and Cody, you guys will answer a few questions. Basically, you have 10 seconds to answer a question, and I'm gonna let Sherston kind of lead this.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna shoot these questions at you, just to give us a better understanding of you guys personally. So I'll ask if you guys have a preference of who wants to go first, and we can just shoot it from there. So first, can you guys tell me what your favorite book or movie of all time is?
Goodfellas is my favorite movie.
Nice.
Book, don't have. I don't know if I have one. Yeah, I don't know if I have a favorite book. I'm a big movie person, so
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's usually one or the other. That's why I asked
yeah.
either. So
I don't really have a favorite movie. I don't really have like a favorite book either. I just started reading Shoe Dog, the film
Okay.
the film
nice.
story about Nike. Hopefully that will become my favorite book. I don't know.
We love it. We love it. In the business world, what is the best piece of advice that you would give to young entrepreneurs right now?
Be persistent.
Yeah,
Simple.
that and be really passionate. Like don't try to go into something, expecting, immense monetary value at the beginning. Like just be passionate about building something first and, eventually that will come.
For sure, for sure. So, you guys have had a long day representing your clients and dealing with negotiations and whatever else. How do you guys like to unwind when you come home?
I know what Cole's answer is.
What is it?
Like 10 games of Call of Duty.
Yeah, even though it's like the most stressful thing ever,
Yeah, I was gonna say that's probably gonna stress you out even more.
play
Yeah.
Warzone, drink like a double espresso because that's just my drink, and literally just sit back in my chair.
Nice.
So you literally do everything that's gonna stress you out even more.
Pretty much.
What about you?
I would say that either these are like two polar opposites, either like having a workout or just, going for a run or something. Or what I like to do, I really like to listen to a lot of different podcasts, and YouTube, especially just looking at successful people, especially in industries that I look up to or people that I look up to, because there's so much access to hearing people's stories, what they do on a day to day. I'll even just like casually play video games, like the sports titles where I don't really have to pay attention. And I'm like watching or listening to something that's almost like therapeutic or like giving me advice in a certain situation. I love doing that.
For sure. Yeah, we love that. That's a great thing about podcasts. It's just like something that's playing in the background, but it's still it's still top of mind.
Yeah.
So obviously, this has been a crazy year. 2020 has been different for everyone. Can you tell us what's one positive thing that you've gotten from this year or learned from this year thus far?
Positive. I think overall, the pandemic has like, I think, accelerated the way that gaming, music, entertainment, all these different cultures, like the lines are getting blurred.
Yeah.
And everyone knew that was going to happen, but now more than ever, because we're going to start living in more of a digital age, it's going to continue. And I think it's going to just present a number of like amazing opportunities on our side to grow and find kind of like new ways to create like amazing things. So
For sure.
I would say one of the amazing things that we learned this year was really just putting your head down and not thinking about anybody else and just continuing forward. I mean, when things got crazy in March, we didn't really know what was going to happen to our industry. We didn't know what was going to happen to our clients and the content, and we didn't
I
know.
literally called Cody and I was like, "Are we about to lose all
Yeah,
of our
yeah.
everything?"
I remember
Yeah.
Colt called and he was like, "Are we about to like almost shut down? Because like we don't even know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen with marketing dollars and things like that." And we had some really honest conversations, and we're true to ourselves and really just put our head down at that point. And through the pandemic, we doubled our roster. Did really well from a revenue perspective, and really just like again, just put your head down and just put our heads down and just focused on the task. And we were able to really strategize and going into this new year of like trying to create new different opportunities for our clients and expand our offerings with them, which we're really really excited about.
For sure. That's great to hear, especially because I think this is a year of finding different opportunities, and that's amazing that you guys were able to pivot that way.
Exactly.
Lastly, this is our basic question on the podcast that we like to bug everyone with because Amin and I have gotten to a lot of arguments about this. Do you guys like pineapples on your pizza?
Yes.
No.
Okay. Okay. All right. That's fair.
I'm Team Cody.
I remember everyone would order like the Hawaiian pizza from Pizza Pizza, and I would
Yeah.
never ever even go near that.
That's the one that I love. I love it.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, it's not me. I can't do it either.
It's fine. I'm okay with it. It's not my first choice.
For sure.
But
Yeah.
it's
No.
fair. Like,
It's just something I like to bug him about. So
No, I'm not gonna eat the pizza, and I love it.
we love it. We love it. Hey guys, that was about it on our podcast. Thank you so much for coming on. This was a great segment, and we learned a lot, especially from the agency side. I think the talent world is always evolving, and it's a new atmosphere kind of every year. So it's interesting to see what you guys are doing, and we're looking forward to seeing where Up North Management takes us.